Can we do roll call, please?
Director Burnworth,
Here.
Director Goodself,
Here.
Director Medard, Director Proctor,
Here.
Director Berger,
Here.
Director Valdez,
Here.
Director Mr. Garcia.
Here.
Would everybody please stand for the pledge of allegiance? Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we'll move on to public comments. At this time, the board will hear comments on any agenda item. If the person wishes to be heard, they shall stand, address the president, identify themselves, and state the subject for the comment. Time limit for each speaker is 3 minutes. A total of 15 minutes shall be allocated for each item for all members of the public. The board may find it necessary to limit the total allowable for all public comments on items not appearing on the agenda to any one meeting to 1 hour. Do we have any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to, we'll break into closed session at 6:03. Okay, so we're gonna go back into open session at 7:30. Do we have a report out of closed session?
There were no reportable actions taken during closed session.
Perfect. So we'll move on to item 6. Item A is AB 918 update, and so do we want to give a CRMC negotiations update?
Sure, I'll take that one. So as you know, we sent our November 5 offer over to ECRMC and the City of El Centro, and we had a negotiation session last night with the City of El Centro, and have not received a counteroffer. The negotiation session was okay. We're hoping to see more progress. We're hoping for a counteroffer soon. The city has brought on special counsel, deal counsel, Shepard Mullen, who are very competent and experienced with deals like this. So we're very hopeful that we will see some expedited progress. They've communicated to us that they understand our sort of urgency and our want to get this deal done ASAP. So we're hopeful. We hope to get a counteroffer soon. This week. They said this week. So, you know, the ball is in their court. It continues to be in their court since November 5th. The PMH discussions regarding communication strategy, the CEO can take part of this, but we're very interested in having some communications with pioneers relating to the litigation. Well, the potential outcome of the litigation is such that, you know, it could end next Thursday or not, right? So if it does end next Thursday and the LAFCO vote to dissolve Pioneers is effective, then we feel it's best to be prepared for the transition, to prepare an integration plan, to prepare communications for staff so that, and the public, so that folks understand what the transition means and doesn't mean. We plan on, you know, luckily our regular board meeting is that same day, the same day as the hearing on the Attorney General's demur and the motion for preliminary injunction filed by Pioneers. So we will update the board on the outcome of the litigation and the hearing that evening at the regular board meeting. And we hope to have some productive discussions between now and then with Pioneers regarding, you know, just logistics in the event that the court rules in the Attorney General's favor we feel it's better to be safe than sorry and be prepared for the transition. And of course, if the court does not rule in IVHD's favor, no harm, no foul, right? There's no downside in being prepared, and we want to make sure to prepare just in case. So I don't know if Chris wants to expand on that or not, but
I mean, it's pretty much like you said. We're waiting to hear back on the availability and the ability to do that, and hopefully we can, because there are several moving parts associated with that as far as that's concerned, and some of the stuff that was brought up at LAPCO in particular that we want to be mindful of with the H-1B visas, and we already have a plan in place for that, and so the sooner we have that information after, should things go that way on the 12th, the sooner we have that, the better. And so being able to have that communication and present that information and talk about how we can do this from a unified standpoint is going to be very important.
yeah. So we're hopeful to hear back from PMH on that, so that we can have, as Chris mentioned, a unified strategy with respect to communication. This kind of bleeds over into the next agenda item, which is items for future agenda, but if the court rules in IVHD and the Attorney General's favor next Thursday, then a discussion we'll be having at the Thursday board meeting is putting a special board meeting on the agenda for the following, probably Monday, to allow the public, PMH employees, whoever wants to participate. It's like to do a Q&A, to do a education campaign on IVHD, something that we will be discussing at the board meeting on the 12th is setting up mission, vision, and values for IVHD so that the board can get some education on that and create a mission and a vision and values for this organization that the board can hopefully approve at the January board meeting. Maybe form an ad hoc committee if you needed to, whatever. But, informing the public about that as we take on the hospital operations. So that's a likely next step. And if the court, doesn't rule in our favor on the 12th, then we wouldn't need a special meeting, But, trying to be nimble as we navigate that action. So that's all I have on the PMH discussions regarding communication strategy.
Yeah, I think it's just the employees, the people with the visas to work here, like, they're concerned. We don't want anything to happen to them. Employees to know, like,
yeah,
This
because
is,
we've prepared on our end. We've figured out the law. We've figured out organizationally what we need to do, what we need signed, what kind of declarations, what kind of affidavits, to make sure everyone's safe and secure and feeling comfortable. But we can't, it's not appropriate for us to communicate directly with PMH employees, right? So we want to come together with PMH to make sure all this stuff is prepared in advance if we can, just for peace of mind. So hopefully they'll help us with that. And to know, if there's anything this board should know before the transition happens, right? Because it's in everyone's interest to make sure the transition is as smooth as possible. So, we don't know what we don't know. Chris doesn't know what he doesn't know. That is probably within the knowledge of the PMH C-suite and the PMH board. So having an opportunity to just ask questions and have open dialogue and say, is there anything we need to know? Is there anything we should prepare for? What do you think are the critical issues we should focus on over the next 2 months? Should be collaborative and friendly and in the best interest of the public. So I have a few items for the future agenda if you want to move on to the next item.
Yep.
Since I already kind of bled over a little bit, so for the regular board meeting on the 12th, it will be a very busy board meeting. Obviously, we'll have an update in closed session on what happened with the litigation, or potentially it may also be an open session update if the lawsuit is over. If the lawsuit is over, we'll need to bring an item to modify Chris's contract from part-time to full-time, because we'll need a CEO in place. And between now and next Thursday, we want to prepare a draft of that contract for potential approval at the meeting on the 12th, so that the transition can be seamless. And, you know, one of the conversations that Chris and I have had is, does it make sense for Chris to start coordinating with maybe a board member or two on that, you know, that contract before we bring it to the board, before Chris brings it to the board? And if so, who should the point people be for that? We have our ad hoc AB 918 negotiation committee, which has been negotiating with ECRMC. And we have our education outreach ad hoc, which is coordinating AB 918 focused information for the public until the merger happens. So how would you like to handle that, or do you want us to just bring back the contract?
Just bring it back.
Okay. Okay, so I'll work with Chris on that. And then some items for the next board meeting: a Public Records Act policy. We've gotten a few Public Records Act requests, so having a policy around that is prudent. We'll have a discussion on the JPA with UCSD. We haven't brought the JPA to this board for approval yet, just because we want to make sure that we're very close on the ECRMC deal, so that we're not in a position, and we're not also putting UCSD in a position where, you know, they're ready to take over Pioneers and UCSD, but we haven't, you know, we don't know that ECRMC is going to come in yet. So we'll have an update on where we're at with that discussion. We'll have a strategic planning session, as mentioned, on some education for mission, vision, and values and strategic planning for the organization. BRG, the financial strategists, have been working a ton over the summer to prepare for the terms for ECRMC acquisition. And in their contract, we strategically added in a provision that said we have a cap. And then we said, when you get to 80% of that cap, let us know. And they're at 80% of that cap. They just let us know today. So we need to bring the BRG contract back to potentially revise that ceiling. So that's something that will be on the agenda for the 12/12 meeting. Those are the items that I have on my to-do list for 12/12. Are there any other items that the board wants to see, so that we can make sure and not leave them off the agenda for next board meeting?
Do we need to look at the Tyson agreement with the
Yeah.
urgent care?
Oh yes, of course. We'll definitely have an urgent care update.
Yeah, I feel like that's been just every board meeting.
Yeah, every regular board meeting we're updating on how the urgent care has progressed.
And then,
Anything else? And if something comes to you after the board meeting, you can always email us, and we'll make sure that it gets put on the agenda.
I think this is a pretty aggressive agenda for the 12th with a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't really want to be here
Until midnight, I know. So,
quick.
and then of course we'll have the scheduling for a potential special meeting.
I mean, there's some of, this stuff that might be better served at a special meeting.
Yeah, and we will likely schedule a special board meeting to begin at 5 p.m. next Thursday, so that we can discuss the litigation, or where we're at with that. And so we're not bleeding into the 6 p.m. time like we did today for the members of the public. So we might just schedule a special board meeting for 5 p.m., take that time, and then start the open session at 6.
Perfect. Awesome.
Because I appreciate strategic planning and all of that stuff, but I don't necessarily know that has to be done on the 12th.
Right.
It's going to take more than one
Session, yeah, and it
Session.
could be that we,
You know, and it may
A few
be an
things introduced at that
introduction
point, and then, yeah.
or whatever,
Right.
but I mean, we can't it's not humanly possible to get all of this done on the 12th is what I'm trying to say. So we need to put it into pieces that are workable,
okay.
or we'll be here till midnight.
Yeah, so maybe I'll put under my notes, strategic planning session phase 1.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That'll work.
Okay.
yeah, because that's not something you do in one meeting.
Yeah.
no, it takes a long time.
I mean, technically, we probably should have been doing that all along, but we got distracted by a lawsuit, I guess. So.
Yeah. Okay, I've got my list.
Perfect. Do you have any other comments from the board?
No, I would, the only thing is, I'm in agreement with Laura. I think the other item that could potentially get dropped off personally is the mission, vision, statement, because we're still gonna be working through things. I don't think it's high priority right now. I think right now, I'm more worried about the people in Raleigh at PMH, the morale and things like that, because we're gonna have a mission statement for them anyway. So I'm more concerned about their morale right now. And I don't think we need to put it on there. That's my personal opinion.
So we can always have it on the agenda, and then if we have a lot to talk about because things have gone a certain way in the litigation, we can table it for a future board meeting.
Perfect.
Better that than not having it on, and then, you know, if things go another way in the litigation, then we don't have a lot to talk about, then we'll have some time. So,
Awesome. If that's it, then I'll adjourn this meeting at 7:45.